This is Local Legends, the podcast where West Michigan sports takes center stage. Hosted by three local voices who've lived and breathed area sports. Hutton, Oshnock, Bakita. High school football the way it's meant to be, covered by the experts who know it best. This is Local Legends. Here it is, the first ever episode of the Local Legends. And speaking of legends, we've got them. Brett Bakita, Ryan Oshnock. I'm Jason Hutton. Brand new pod. We're so excited about this. I mean, honestly, I can't stop thinking about it. This is going to be so much fun. All right, let's go. Osh, this was kind of your idea. I mean, if we really go back to this, us three kind of started this, I guess, 10 years ago, 2015 on the Fox 17 Blitz. You joined us as our first ever guest coach on the last Blitz, and we kind of got started there. And then this was your idea, this podcast, and here we go. We're doing it. So I don't know, what are we doing here?
You know, I'm a big podcast guy, right? And I'm always searching for, what can I listen to locally, right? I spent part of the summer listening to some of old Bakita's old podcasts with like the Guard Thompsons of the world, and just those things. I search that out, and it's always been a passion of mine. Number one, high school football. Two, the history of high school football. And then three, the history of just West Michigan stuff. And to put this together in a podcast here, I'm thrilled. I'm excited. I feel like I can talk forever. And if I do talk forever, you got to let me know. But I just love discussing the game, talking about the game, talking about kids and players and coaches. And so I'm super excited to get this thing off the ground here.
And one of the things about Osh that you love and you can see as a part of this podcast, and we knew right away after talking to him, doing that first edition with him, is you have a media background. I mean, you've enjoyed this. You've covered the GLIAC for Wayne State. Talk a little bit about that with the audience, because that adds to the insight of how you see the game, let alone you're a local head coach for Northview High.
Yeah, and just I've had the opportunity to do a lot of radio with Wayne State University, which is my alma mater. And when you follow the game like that, man, you got to do your homework, right? You're going back and you're saying, I want to study this player. I want to make sure I know where he's from, who his head coach was. I want to know a little bit of background information. And, when you're calling the game, it's like, oh my gosh, you got to be able to have that stuff right on the tip of your tongue. And, I've just loved it, right? I've loved to dive into those, the too deep. I love to read their bios and their history. And I feel like I'm able to offer some insight as a coach, what's going on the field. But then obviously just kind of the history of the game as well. So it's always been a passion of mine, and I'm excited just to kind of keep this ball rolling.
And Jay, I wanted to jump in for the audience that missed it. You can go back and listen to Osh. We had a blast because remember last year he filled in for a playoff game out at Zeeland West, did a great job. Buck Gino was out, and it was just another side of you that I hadn't seen. We had never done a game before, but it was a fun time, and you did a great job with that. So I appreciate that, Coach.
I appreciate that. And you call a game just like Sean Belegian does over there on the east side of the state too. And he's my partner when I do it over there. So I had a blast. Thanks.
That's high praise right there. That's high praise. All right. So why we're doing this podcast, right? Many reasons. I mean, one, it's our passion. We love it, right? We have this knowledge. We follow this sport. But really, we're trying to give intelligent conversation about high school football to people that want it. And we just feel like there's people that want it. And, I worked at Fox 17 for a long time, and I haven't worked there in over a year, and I don't know what's going on, but it certainly doesn't appear like they're doing much with high school football anymore. And it's just local media is not what it once was. You have to pay for all the print stuff now, which I don't pay for print stuff. So this is going to be free to listen to. So that's kind of our goal, right? I mean, you guys jump in on that.
I agree, Jay. And it's one of those, everywhere I go, people love to listen back to podcasts like Osh said. I mean, that's kind of the hot thing that's going on right now, whether it's a game broadcast, whether it's a show. We love, if you know our backgrounds, all of us highlighting kids, spreading joy of the good things about high school football. We all played high school sports. And so that's kind of my passion of it. And with bringing Osh in, I think sometimes as parents, which I am now, my daughter plays soccer in the Byron Center program. And, you look at things in different eyes when it's your family or it's something close to you. And so I love being able to bring in the coaches that we do on a regular basis, and Coach being a part of this podcast on a regular basis, to let them have a voice too. Because it's easy, I think, as parents, or it's easy to be critical of whatever the case might be, whether it's a call here, how a coach handles something. And with having Coach with us, he can explain not only from his standpoint, but like he said, he loves soaking up and learning from people like Tony Anise that you've had the pleasure of coaching under. I mean, your coaching tree is incredible, Coach, but it's just, I think that gives perspective to, oh, maybe I didn't look at it that way because parents aren't coaches, which we understand.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And if I look back kind of at the history of myself, I remember as a kid, pre-internet days, right? Just I could not wait for the Grand Rapids Press to get to our house. And it came at 3:15. And I couldn't wait to get there, grab the sports section, open it up to page 3 and read about the high school rankings, right? Or look at a box score or see who the top 10 in the area are, rushing wise or passing wise or whatever that may be. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. Not only was it the Grand Rapids Press, but Jason will appreciate this. It was the Daily News, the guys like John Raffle. But some of the people in the Grand Rapids Press were Jane Boss, David Mayo, and I ate it up. I loved it, and I'm hopeful that we can provide a platform for not only coaches and kids, and just I want to be able to highlight and continue on that legacy of highlighting West Michigan sports, right? I mean, I want someone to be able to go back and say, hey, these guys are going to talk about, this game, and I want to hear those key names. I want to hear what they did. I want to be able to just kind of get some of that knowledge, and hopefully I can give some of that. So I feel like I've got a lot to give, and hopefully this is the right platform for it.
So high school football in West Michigan is going to be the basis for what this show is, but we are not limiting ourselves in any way. We will talk the entire state of Michigan for sure. We will talk about other sports. We will talk about other levels. Like all three of us love the college game, especially, GLIAC, MIAA, all this stuff. Now NAI is coming into Michigan a little bit with college football. Like, are we going to talk Michigan State Lions? Maybe. But local legends, this show is called Local Legends, even other sports. Like I'm a high school sports guy. So like I will follow the volleyball scene a little bit, the boys soccer season a little bit, all things like that. Like those things will probably come up. But the basis for what we're doing is high school football in West Michigan. It's called Local Legends. Local is really what we're about. We're all three local, native to West Michigan. And so let's get into that a little bit. Ash, let's start with you. I mean, you grew up Lakeview, Michigan, not too far north of me, Montcalm County. Your dad, a legendary coach at Lakeview, right? I mean, just kind of take us through your background.
Yeah, so I grew up in the little small town of Lakeview. Was born in Battle Creek, but went to school in Athens for just a small cup of coffee there before my dad got the job at Lakeview High School. And I lived there from first grade till 12th grade. And my dad was the head football coach in the community. And he was the athletic director. He was a math teacher. He was a phys ed teacher. And if you know anything about small towns, a lot of times your heroes are your teachers in the town, right? Those are the people that you see the most. And I think most communities, small communities are like that. And, I grew up and I knew right away, I think, you do those 5th or 6th grade, like, oh, what do I want to be when I grow up? Oh, I want to be a high school football coach. Cause that's what my dad did. Right. I got to be on the sidelines. I got to be at every single practice. And because of that, I mean, we followed the scene, and because he was an athletic director, I mean, I was at every single boys and girls basketball game. I was at every single football game. I was at all these practices. I was at all the baseball games. And so really just being from that small town really molded who I was. Did have the opportunity to play football at Wayne State from 2002 to 2006. Met a lot of great people there as well. And hopefully we'll be able to have some of those guys on the show. And I was fortunate enough that there's a lot of my teammates are now head football coaches here in the state of Michigan. So it's been really cool kind of just, being a part of that. And back in 2014, when I got my first opportunity to be a head football coach at Forest Hills Northern, it was just truly an honor to be back in West Michigan as a head football coach and kind of living out my dream.
Take us through your path real quick, your coaching path, where you went after college, and then leading up to your head coaching jobs here in West Michigan.
Yep. So some people don't know this, but my very first job was at Benton Harbor High School. Tony Anise actually helped me out there. It's a long story. We'll maybe get into that one time. But I was at Benton Harbor for a semester. Then I took a job at Burns High School in Duncan, South Carolina. And it was one of those perennial top 25 USA Today schools with the guys like Marcus Lattimore, Chase Dodd, some of these other guys that went on to play in the National Football League. I was there for 2 years. Then I was a graduate assistant at Central Michigan University in 2009. I was a graduate assistant at at the University of Cincinnati in 2010 and 2011. I was the defensive coordinator for Tony Anise at Ferris State. I was a special teams coordinator for Ron English at Eastern Michigan University, and I was at Forest Hills Northern, Holland West Ottawa, and now here at Grand Rapids Northview.
That's awesome. Wow. A lot we can dive into with that. But let's get to Brett. Brett, your career, I mean, more than 30, are we over 30 years now of you calling games in West Michigan?
Yes, this will be year 33.
Yeah, and you're from Rockford, the small town of Rockford. It was small back when you were growing up.
Yeah, back in the late 80s, I graduated in 1989, and my parents were 30-plus year retired teachers, right? High school sweethearts over in the Lansing area. Got an opportunity after they graduated from Central and landed in Rockford because they could both be in the same school district, hired by one of the oldest superintendents at the time that said, hey, we'll take a chance on you. And my dad was a great 3-sport athlete, maybe 4-sport, because they did track and baseball together at little Elsie High. And so that's where I got my love for, I think, sports is through him. He always coached me, and I had a 4-year older brother, and they all went into the education background. So we were all CMU grads. I went to CMU to watch Gary Huggaboom coach back in the day, and Ray Bentley, who I got a chance to co-host a radio show with, some pretty good players from this area. And I think that's where my passion for high school sports really came. Is my dad would always take us to the big games, whether it was football or basketball. My brother played both, and my brother played in an era in the early to mid 80s where it was unbelievable in the Grand Rapids area, as Coach alluded to. I mean, on the basketball side, you had Loie Vaught that he played against, Mark Hughes at Reese Puffer. Guard Thompson was a little bit older than he was. We grew up watching Mel McLaughlin play. My principal at Rockford, Jim Haskins, the former OK Conference commissioner, for those who don't know, he was Mel McLaughlin's coach at Creston back in the day. So a lot of connection points there. And I just loved basketball and football. I got to throw this name out for Coach Osh because this is before Ferris State was big time. But I watched a guy who, I don't know if there was anyone faster from East Kentwood High back in the day than Jesse Hurd, if he got loose. Went on to play at Big Rapids and Ferris State. That might be a little before your time, Coach, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I've heard the name. Yeah, absolutely. And I love talking about some of that old stuff. I hear those names, and I've become very close friends with Sparky McEwen, who's now the head coach at Davenport, and just hearing when he talks about the 80s in Grand Rapids, it's a special time. And he talks about who he played with at King Park over there, and he talks about Guard Thompson, and and then you rattle off those names, kind of gives me goosebumps, man.
It was so fun growing up in that era. So that's where my passion. And then I realized I probably didn't want to go into teaching, even though I liked maybe the aspect of coaching a little bit because my brother had done it, my dad had done it. So I went to Central, and as we watched these games, you kind of find out more about the university. And I realized that they had one of the only broadcasting schools, a 4-year degree program. And the late Dick Enberg was a grad of that, gave a lot of money back to the school. And I don't think there's many people better than Dick Enberg in this industry. And so that was what was my push to go to broadcasting school at CMU. And Jay, I know you've got a background, the same thing as me, kind of growing up with that. And so from there to be able to do this as a job and continue what we loved as kids growing up, I feel like I don't have a job. I feel like I'm just, living out a dream that most kids would like to do.
Well, and I call you the voice of West Michigan. I mean, that's just what you are. I mean, when you hear Brett Bakita call a game, it doesn't get better than that. So let's just update everybody on Brett Bakita's career status here, because you're obviously no longer with Fox 17, because none of us are.
Right.
But you are going to continue to call the game of the week on Friday night on 96.1 The Game.
Yeah, I went 20 plus years. You always remind me of this because I forget how many years it is. I think at Fox 17, started at WZZM back in the day with Tim Swore, who was the first to ask me to be on air. So thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. And he's still doing a great job coaching in the area. Matter of fact, I saw a post where he's getting ready for practice on Monday. He was doing his last minute vacation. But that was where I got my start with TV. But radio, as I mentioned, 1 year in Muskegon, which was perfect for me, as Osh can probably talk about with his graduate assistant jobs. There's one job where you're just kind of like, oh, I'm glad I did that because now I know what I want to do. And being in Muskegon, there's nothing better and bigger than Muskegon high school football. And I got baptism by fire because I covered Muskegon Catholic Central. So I got to hear about Mona Shores, the cradle of coaches there. Mike Holmes was the coach at the time, legendary Hall of Famer. And from there, I knew that I was in the right position. And then I got a chance to come back because Grand Rapids started an all sports station and do it right here in my own backyard. And that was one of the greatest days ever. And then with Muskegon now being a part of the OK Conference and seeing how that's expanded, it's just double the fun for me, because now I can go back and see some of the people like Tom Kendra, who was on our staff, that I used to run into all the time in that first year when I was covering Muskegon high school sports.
That's awesome stuff. All right. So I grew up in Belding, Michigan, right? And my love started there because my freshman year of high school, my senior high school, we won state championships in football. But like, you've never seen community like Belding in the 90s. I mean, you didn't get to sit at the game on Friday. It didn't matter who they were playing or where in the season we were. You needed to be in line at the gate at least 2 hours before the gate opened, or you were not going to sit. As soon as those gates opened, everybody poured in, and it was full an hour and a half before kickoff. I mean, you've never seen anything like the community that supported Belding in the night. It was just, I can't even describe it. And it was amazing, right? But I think I really fell in love with it when I was in college, because I thought I wanted to go into a different avenue. I always wanted to go into broadcasting, but I decided after some academic issues to do the broadcasting. And I got a job at little WION Radio, 1,500 watt station in Ionia, Michigan, covering high school sports. And I remember when the owner hired me and told me, I want you to cover high school sports, I was not happy. I thought I was going to talk NBA, NFL. And I started covering high schop sports, and it was like, wow, like this is what I want to do. Right. And so it started there. I ended up going to Central Michigan, going to the Broadcast Cinematic Arts program. I did 1 year in Lansing, 2004, covered the Pistons NBA championship. Pretty good for a kid right out of college. And then I ended up at Fox 17 in 2006 and kind of worked my way from the ground up. And that's what brings me to Bakita. Ash, I hope you like this story. So I used to listen to Brett. He used to do a Saturday morning show when I was doing the show in Ionia. And obviously we had never met, but I always loved listening to Brett. He was great, a role model of mine. And then I started working at Fox 17, and Brett's like, of course, the guy they bring in from the radio. So he doesn't have the TV background. Like, he doesn't know how to run a camera or do sound or any of that kind of stuff. So when he goes out to do his previews for the game of the week, he needs to have somebody with him that knows how to operate a camera, knows how to, do all the technical stuff, right? So that's how I first met Brett. I used to drive him around from practice to practice for game of the week, right? And I was just, nobody knew who I was. I wasn't on TV. I was Brett Bakita's chauffeur and the guy who held the camera for him when he did the interviews.
And Hutton was the book, because I couldn't remember names, Ash. So he would have every roster in his little binder, and he could tell me, or just off the top of his head, yeah, that's the quarterback you're going to be interviewing coming up. So I'm forever grateful, and thus he is the book.
That's a great story. I love it. I love it. That's really cool. I mean, like when I was getting into this stuff, I was, as a coach, same thing. It was like, okay, I need to meet Tony and Anise. All right, yep. Here's my steps. Here's how I'm going to do it. Oh, I need to student teach. I'm a student teach for Rob Zeitman. And I remember when you couldn't pick where you were going to student teach. But I did. I said, you know what? I'm driving up there. Rob Zeitman's going to sign this. He had no idea who I was at the time. He's like, who are you? I go, I'm going to be your student teacher in 1 week. Sign this paper. And that's how I got, my in with those guys. And that's how I got to meet them. And it was just because I was like, you know what? I know I want to be like these guys a little bit. I'm going to go work for them. I'm going to put myself in that position to do it.
You got to surround yourself with the right people, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
That's where it's at. All right. So this is what we're going to do on this show. Friday nights, late Friday. This is going to be hour, 2, 3, 4 hours. When we're ready, we're going to tape a podcast reacting to the games on Friday nights, right? And Osh knows everybody. And, Brett and I know a lot of people, but Osh knows everybody. So we will reach out to coaches based on what happens on Friday night. Whoever has the big win, whoever has a great finish, great close game, whatever, and we'll ask them to be on. And we feel pretty confident we can get most of the guys on we want. So it'll be us talking about what had happened. We'll have coach interviews, but really this is going to be a reaction to games on Friday nights. And this will be made available sometime, in the early hours of Saturday morning, so people can access it as they wish throughout the weekend. What we're going to do leading up to the season, which August 28th is week 1, Thursday. Most teams play Thursday, handful of games on Friday, August 29th, because it's Labor Day weekend. We're going to do some coach interviews. So we're going to have coaches on to preview their seasons. We have lined up Brett Sandy from Hudsonville. Of course, they went to the state championship game. Mark Sisko from Byron Center went to the state championship game in Division II. Then we've got Ty Spencer from East Kentwood to talk about the Falcons season. We're hoping to get Matt Koziak, talk about Mona Shores. They should be, as always, one of the better teams in the area. And then we're going to branch out a little bit, right? And we're not just going to be West Michigan. So Dan Rowan, who's a West Michigan guy, and we've gotten to know very well over the years. He's the head coach at De La Salle. We're hoping to have him on. And then Jake Weingartz, who's the head coach at Davison High School, won a state championship in his second year there. Of course, they came to the side of state. They played Granville in the regular season. They played Rockford in the playoffs. So that's our list of preview coaches we're going to have on leading up to the season. And then on Friday nights, we're going to react to games.
I love it.
It's going to be super exciting. And speaking from the coaching standpoint, most people are like, hey, what do you do after the game? I mean, no matter what, win, lose, or draw, or whatever it may be, I mean, you're going to be wired until 2:00 in the morning anyway. So we might as well film a podcast at midnight. So I'm excited about that.
Well, Coach, one of the things I want to dive into before we preview, obviously, his team too, Northview, the Wildcats, and what a story last year, is just from a coaching perspective and from the way that you laid out your resume. You've been in a lot of different places, but as a head coach in the West Michigan area, when you go to a school and become their head coach, whether that program was on the rise, already established, or you're trying to develop them or bring them back, you hear the word chemistry thrown around a lot. And it's easy to say that word, but what does that word mean? And I want to ask you that question, because how do you develop that with kids that you've never met before and you're trying to get your arms around the program and turn it around in a short amount of time? And what do you do to get the kids to, I think, which is another big word, trust you?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is shared experiences. Shared experiences create chemistry. Well, sometimes really good chemistry, sometimes it's bad, but we try to create as many shared experiences as we can. So if you get a job somewhere, number one, you got to figure out, all right, how can I get close to these athletes on a very regular basis, right? And a lot of times as a football coach, that starts with in the weight room. So when I got the job at Northview, I was a co-teacher in the weight room, and we had like 90% of our kids in there, right? So you want to be able to connect with them as much as possible and create those shared experiences in the weight room. As things start to develop, you start to get in that off season, January, February, March, you're trying to do some skill development things when you can. And you're trying to invite kids, maybe, hey, we're going to do a morning workout. We're going to do an after school workout. We're going to try to get together. Sometimes when I was at Forest Hills Northern, I was one of the assistant track coaches because I wanted to be around the guys. So I'm trying to get around them as much as possible. And then when June hits, we just hit the ground running. Here at Northview, we work out from 9 to noon every day. It seems like a long time, and we do it 4 days a week. But in that time period, 1, we're doing weight room workouts. 2, we're doing skill development and speed workouts. 3, we're throwing 7-on-7s. 4, we're doing team camps, right? And some of those times we're taking kids from Grand Rapids to Ann Arbor to go to the University of Michigan, or from Grand Rapids to Wayne State University in Detroit. And we're trying to create as much bonding as we can with myself and those players. Because I don't think that there's any other way that you can create trust amongst kids unless they know who you are as a person. So the more they get to know you, the more they get to know your family, the more they get to know about you and how transparent you are with them, and how honest you are with them, right? And when you're coaching them, you just got to be extremely honest with them and say, hey, I want to get you from point A to point B. I'm going to be bluntly honest with you, right? I've been around the likes of guys like Antonio Brown, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, right? Travis Kelce was a tight end when I was at the University of Cincinnati. So some of those guys, those guys taught me, like, just be honest with me. Tell me exactly what I did wrong so I can get better. And if we can get kids to buy in to say, I want to be the best version of me that I can be, that means you got to tell me how to get there, right? If my hand placement is wrong, my feet are wrong, whatever it is, just be honest with me. And then, you can continue to build these guys up to be the best version of themselves. So I guess the long and the short of it, 1, you got to create shared experiences amongst the guys and amongst yourself. And then 2, you got to be brutally honest with them. Like, hey, how can I get better? How do we continue to get better?
So this is our first episode, and we're doing previews leading up to the season. And it's only right in my mind that our first preview would be your team, because this is your podcast. And by the way, it's not like your team didn't earn it. You were 9-0 last year, right? So it's not like this is a good team that we're talking about. So let's just start out by asking you had not even had a winning season since you had got to Northview until last year. And then boom, you were 9-0. But you did make the playoffs in 2023, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see this coming last year, 9-0?
Oh, no, no. And we never go into a season thinking like, hey, you're going to be 9-0, right? We literally, and it sounds cliche, but like our sole focus last year was game one against Chelsea, right? And we were going to go against a local legend, right? Noel Dean. And we didn't know what to expect. And that was our sole focus. And so we try to, just break it up our season. And they're all 1 week seasons, right? We're going to do everything we can to beat Chelsea. Right. And then it was, we're going to do everything we can to beat Wyoming. And then, you get the ball rolling down the hill and the wind started collecting right there. And it's the same thing with this season coming up. Is our sole focus is what are we going to do to beat West Catholic in week one, right? Like, how are we going to prepare our guys for August 29th? We're one of those Friday games to beat West Catholic, right? And West Catholic was a rival of Northview for many, many years, right? They used to open up with each other in the 80s and in the 90s and even in the early 2000s. And I think in the 2010s, they were even in the same league for a little bit. But that's kind of a local rivalry. And we're excited about that. I've never coached a game at West Catholic, been to many games there, seen the atmosphere, know it's unbelievable. The tailgating and the fan support and the student section, it's huge, right? And yeah, it's a Division 5 school, but they're one of the best Division 5 teams obviously in the state of Michigan. You can just look at their resume, right? And they opened up last year against a really good program from Cincinnati, Elder High School. I mean, that place is probably a top 5 stadium to play in the country in high school football. And so we're looking at it right now. What can we do to beat West Catholic, right? I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but that's just how we operate here.
Coach, congratulations. It was fun to cover your games. I was out there for the Highland Christian game. The blackout was really special. I think you had just come off a big win over Catholic Central, which a lot of people saw as maybe the team to beat in that division. But in realignment in general, don't you think the OK Conference and even the River Cities Alliance, I know some people, feathers were ruffled about teams leaving and all that kind of stuff. But I think when you look at the NFL, whether you like it or not, parity makes for an interesting league. And I think that that's what the OK Conference and the River Cities Alliance, with their philosophy, we're trying to do, at least when it comes to football. I know every sport's kind of different now, but I just look at what Holland did with the OK Silver. Your division was fun to watch. How great was the OK Gold? Oh, my goodness. You want to talk about a gauntlet? The OK Red. And so if I'm a fan, I don't want to see 76-0. I want to see competitive games and every school as best as possible. It's not a perfect world. Feeling they have a chance when training camp starts that, hey, we can win our division. And then whatever happens after that, right, is cherry on top. The playoffs are the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when we look at realignment, I think we were super thankful because there was a lot of different divisions that were thrown out there. And, credit to the OK Conference. They said, you know what, maybe we can learn from some of these schools on the east side of the state where they say, hey, football is maybe a little bit different than what basketball and baseball is going to look like. And, I think credit to them because I think football's tough, right? And if you've got to be, when you're holding that magic marker to say like, hey, these are going to be the teams in the division. Number one, you got to know you're never going to make everybody happy, right? There's no way to make everybody happy. But when you talk about that parity piece right there, oh my gosh, and still do a good job of trying to keep some local rivalries going, right? And I talk about in our conference, I mean, we've played East Grand Rapids a number of times, and then to have the opportunity to play Catholic Central, who, to me, I mean, they're bar none, like the best team in our league, right? A year in and a year out. I mean, that is a program in West Michigan to beat, right? And so we were super honored to be able to have the opportunity to go and compete against them. And then you throw in an upstart Holland Christian team who was every bit as good as advertised, every bit as dynamic as everybody thought. And then you throw in Thornapple Kellogg and Ottawa Hills. It turned out for us to be just an outstanding league and coaching wise. And then you had to bring your A game every single week. I mean, you had to respect your opponent and you had to prepare like crazy each and every week. And you talk about the OK Gold. Oh my goodness. Just the games that we saw, like, and I know we saw a team go undefeated, right? I think I went undefeated in that conference.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Unity Christian won that division, yet Zeeland West is the state champ.
I know. And say like, wow. I mean, the games and Friday nights in that division were unbelievable. But yeah, I think you're correct about that parity piece. I think everybody goes into training camp right now thinking, you know what, we've got a shot to win this league.
By no means was your schedule last year easy. I mean, you played really good teams.
Mm-hmm.
But when you talk about the realignment piece, you're the second largest school in that division. The OK Black, only Ottawa Hills larger. So yes, you beat a really good Grimm's Catholic Central team. They're Division 5. Holland Christian was a playoff team. They're Division 4. Even East Grand Rapids, who's perennially great. I mean, they're Division 3. So they're smaller than you as a Division 2 school. So for you, you go 9-0 and you don't get a home playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this. We saw it with Comstock Park and Doug Samuels a few years ago. They played West Catholic in the first round and they didn't get a playoff game. And that's not easy. I mean, you go 9-0, especially against your schedule, you feel like you deserve a home playoff game. I'm sure you felt that way. What did you say to your kids after 9-0 when you were getting ready to get on a bus and go play Byron Center in the first round?
You know, in our opinion, we thought Byron Center was one of the absolute best teams in Division 2. I mean, and we knew it right away because we had played them the previous 4 years. We knew they're a very good football team. And I just told the guys, look, if we're going to make a run in November, we're going to have to play these guys. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's week 1, week 2, week 3 of the playoffs. It doesn't matter. We might as well give them our best shot right now. And really credit to our guys and our coaching staff that it was just, you know what? It was just the next game on the schedule, right? It was like, all right, we've got to prepare like crazy to give Byron Center the very best game that we can. And, you know, I mean, when you go back to when they're realigning those leagues, and the previous year we made the Division 3 playoffs and we lost to Mount Pleasant in the first round of the playoffs. So we were a Division 3 school, and I think they were viewing us as a Division 3 school and slotting us in that. And that's why we're maybe placed in that conference right there. So I guess you can't ever really exactly know until those numbers come out at the very end there. But I've gotten past that point, because if you look at Division 2, we had the 9th most playoff points in Division 2, the 9th most. There's 32 teams that make it. So we went 9-0. We had the 9th most points. But I mean, we had Mona Shores and we had Byron Center in the same district, right? And until they talk about realigning or seeding the region or something like that, you know what? That we very well could see the exact same scenario play out again this year, and I don't think our kids care one bit, right? And I, quite honestly, I don't really care. I think we've got a great schedule. I think we're playing a lot of quality opponents. I think that West Catholic, even though they're a Division 5 school, they could beat a lot of teams, Division 3, 2, and 1 in this area. And so, you know what? If you want to be a contender in November, you got to play schools like West Catholic because they're going to get you ready for the playoffs.
Ash, how about this? Every coach we talk to, and it's no different for you, usually if they have a successful year, it's because they've graduated a great senior class. So now that's like, okay, I got to reload, right? Because the seniors might have been 3-year varsity players, which back in the day when we were all growing up, that was unheard of. I mean, you had to be a flat out stud, even as a sophomore, to be considered to play varsity football. That's all changed because of nutrition, in my opinion, because of power strength and physical training, and just the kids' intellect to be able to pick things up to be at a varsity level, as you know, because it's not like the game has gotten easier from the descriptions and everything else these kids have to learn. It's really amazing in a week what you guys do with them and what they comprehend. But I guess my question to you is, what is the toughest position in your mind? And it could be offense, defense, that you have to replace when you graduate a senior. I know the obvious one might be quarterback, but is there something we're missing there? Because, boy, I don't know. Those big guys in the trenches can be tough to replace too.
You hit the nail on the head there. Obviously, quarterback is the one that's going to be talked about the most. But at the same time, the quarterback is going to get a ton of like semi-live reps in the spring, in the summer, in training. So that you're going to be preparing a guy, and that guy, in my opinion, is going to be ready to play that spot. And in today's era where kids are really, I mean, they have the opportunity to play 7-on-7 year round, right? So those quarterbacks, I mean, I think they can catch you onto your system really, really quickly, right? But in my opinion, it's like having a really good offensive tackle or a tight end, right? And the way that we run our offense, we run a lot of outside zone, right? So it's like, how do we get those guys good at what we're doing? And when you can't really see live bullets until those first 2 weeks of August of training camp, right? And to see like, well, I think this guy's going to be pretty good. But then when the contact is getting ready to happen, like, ooh, he kind of shies away a little bit, right? Now we've got to kind of retool what we're doing. Like maybe he's not the guy. And so for us, I mean, Andre Johnson was one of our left tackle, or was our left tackle last year, and he was a senior, and we ran behind him a ton. And we've got to figure out a way, how do we replace a guy like that? You don't necessarily replace him, you just have a different guy at that spot. But to me, training the offense line to be, 5 guys as one, I think that's tough. I think that's really tough.
So we look at your team returning, a lot of guys back, right? I mean, my numbers aren't exact science, but I got you for 7 back on offense, 5 back on defense. A lot of key guys: Jalen Gannett running back, AJ Johnson, Logan Tyson, a receiver, Jack Van Proyen at tight end, 3 of your 5 offensive linemen. You talk about Keandre Johnson at nose tackle, Grayson Corlin, a linebacker, Colin Gesser, Julian Charity in the back end. I mean, that's a pretty good place to start off a team that went 9-0 last year. How do you feel about this group as we get set to start, 2025?
Yeah, we feel really good, and it's really going to come down to, can we develop that offensive and defensive line, right? Because we've got a lot of those skill guys back, right? And we lost our 2 guards we lost our tackle and a guard from last year, and we're going to move one of our guards to tackle. But we lost 2 offensive linemen. Who can we find to get that unit to gel, right? We lost 2 defensive ends last year. Who can be those 2 others that we can get that group going? Because if you're going to be good in West Michigan, number one, you got to be able to stop the run on defense, right? You got to play great defense, and you got to be able to stop the run. The only way you can stop the run is if you have a legitimate defensive line. And so we've got to be able to figure out a way to be able to stop teams from running the football. Because, I mean, when you look at week 1, if we can't stop the run, Coach Grove is just going to continue to run counter, run right at you. And he's not going to stop, right? He's bullish just like that, just like his protege and Coach Anise. He's going to run the same thing if he's going to gain positive yards with it. So we've got to be able to figure out a way to stop the run, and then we've got to be able to figure out a way to run the football. So we're going to be as good as those offense and defensive lines take us, right? And having all those skill guys back, because if you look at it, a guy like Jalen Gant, who was right at that 1,000-yard mark last year, and he split carries with Will Sonora, who set the school record for rushing touchdowns last year, right? And he was a guy who rushed for almost 1,000 yards as well. So you're like, we feel really good about that spot, right? We've got those 2 receivers coming back, Logan Tyson, AJ Johnson. This will be his 4th year on the varsity. And Brett, you talked about that. That's a rarity, but you're starting to see that a little bit more because of places like Power Strength, right? And on the east side of the state, they have a place called Sound Mind, Sound Body that really starts to develop these kids at such a young age that if they're physically ready as a freshman, we have no issue with that. We're going to have a freshman up on the varsity this next year. I know it right now. And it just, he's physically ready for it. He's been working out forever. He's football savvy. He's played a ton of 7-on-7. So he's got that cerebralness to him that he knows the game. So like these places are really helping kids, in my opinion, be ready for high school football.
Coach, one more personal question I have for you as far as how you deal with it in your coaching staff that I think is real interesting and doesn't get talked about a lot, but yet coaches will reference captains or leaders or whatever. How do you go about poking a little bit, maybe someone that you want to be a leader because you like what their character and makeup is, and say, hey, I need you to be this? Do you pull someone aside, or is it basically kid driven or teammate driven?
Yeah, I think you have to be able to develop leaders, right? And I think, obviously a leader can be anybody on the team in any different aspect, right? There's a lot of different ways to lead. It just doesn't have to be vocal. It can be by performance or even helping somebody, right? I mean, there are players that might not sniff the field that can be leaders, but in our opinion, the way that we develop leaders is, one, we let our kids at the end of the year vote for captains for the following year, right? And so then I kind of can, obviously I'm the one looking at the votes and I see it. I'm like, okay, this kid got a ton of votes and he's going to be one of our 3 captains for the next year. And there might be some people out there that you're saying like, oh, I thought this guy was a leader, but his peers don't see him like that. And we always make one kid apply, or we let seniors apply to be a captain if they're not already named that. If they weren't one of the 3 leading vote getters, we make them apply and go through an interview process. And so we kind of target those individuals that were like, you know what, I thought you were a leader. We're going to try to develop you in the off season to be a leader. And here's how you do it, right? The leaders are the ones that are organizing extra sessions, right? So if I'm going to, as a coach, I shouldn't be the one like, hey, I'm going to have a bunch of guys out on the field throwing. Like, number one, just like there should be a quarterback, a receiver that's leading that charge, right? And when you have a good leader, when it's like, oh, they're out there throwing and all the guys are out there throwing, right? Like they've got them. Like they've got that going, right? Oh, the offensive linemen, they're out there and they're hitting the sled and they're doing their bag work and they're doing their footwork. Oh, like we have a leader in that group that has really taken the step, taking the right approach to leading guys. So, can I answer your question, right? We're going to continue to prod and develop these guys to be leaders. We want to push everybody to be a leader, and we talk about that. There's a ton of different ways to lead, but we're going to prod the dudes that we know have the ear of the locker room to become leaders.
Seems like as good a time as any to talk quarterback. You had a good one last year in Armand Irving, who played a lot of varsity football in his career. You have a new quarterback this year, Braylon Jefferson. Of course, he was at Hudsonville last year. He was on the JV team. They were 9-0 at JV. I mean, that was a really good Hudsonville JV team. Tell us about Braylon Jefferson, what you expect out of him, and what he brings as a quarterback.
Yeah, and when you talk about that being 9-0, even as a JV quarterback, and try to think, just knowing him from the few months that I've known him, I don't know if he's ever even lost a game, right? As a starting quarterback, because that Hudsonville class has been so good and so talented, right? So to me, he's a winner, right? And it was just like Armand. Armand to me was an unbelievable. He was a competitor. It was every single play. He wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to make sure the guys were in the right spot, because fairly or unfairly, as your team goes, it's going to be right. It's going to be viewed as how was that quarterback, right? How was the trigger guy? Like, oh, that was a really good team. And who was the quarterback, right? And they're going to remember that name, fairly or unfairly, right? He's a guy, in my opinion, his arm strength is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. One of the best that I've ever coached. He reminds me a lot of Isaac Van Dyke from my West Ottawa days. He is a big time arm, right? I think where we're going to find out how he is on the field, right? When those live bullets are firing on that first Friday night against West Catholic, when the brakes are going against you, how do you react? Because that's really hard to simulate in practice. Now, we do try to simulate that in practice as much as we can, because we are a platoon team and we start 22 different guys. So we're trying to create competitive situations in our practice to get them ready, right? And as we've done our different team camps and summer camps within our own program over the summertime, I think he's reacted really, really well, right? We've given him a bunch of reps. We feel like he's a guy that can lead us to where we want to go. And he's going to have to just continue to learn our system. I mean, it's all installed right now. He knows it, right? And it's how much can he grasp it and how accurate can you be when your number is called to throw the football. And I mean, I think that's going to be the telltale sign, because Armand was as good as it gets last year.
Coach, we talked a little bit with some other coaches, having to go out of state and play. And I think now there's two different mindsets. One is because they're used to it and maybe have to do it because they're so successful. They look at it as what you just said with the, shared experiences, right? You get on a bus trip for 2-3 hours. It's almost like a college, and you can really build some bonds there, good or bad. Because if you ride back after a loss, you know what that's all about as a former college player too, but there's always a learning experience there. So I think there's some schools that do that, but I'm curious, because of your background and knowing Landon, did the West Catholic Northview thing happen because you guys were just like, you know what, I don't need to go out of state. You guys are a good competition for us. Let's bring this back. Or was there other circumstances involved?
No, it was honestly, it was one, knowing the history of a Northview West Catholic game.
Right.
And then two, in my opinion, there is great high school football in West Michigan. And when you bring together two programs like Northview and West Catholic, you're going to have an unbelievable crowd, and you're going to have an unbelievable Friday night experience. And I was texting back and forth with Landon. So now Landon was when I was the defensive coordinator at Ferris State, he was a senior at Gladwin High School, and we recruited him to come to Ferris. And I had left Ferris to go to Eastern Michigan before I had the opportunity to coach him. Well, maybe I've got that right. He might have been a freshman in my first. Yeah, I think he was a freshman in my year there at Ferris. And when you have that opportunity to have a local game that can draw, I don't even know the number, like 5, 6, 7,000 fans or whatever it may be. To me, those are lasting memories for kids that they're never going to forget. Like, they're never going to forget that, and you're going to see, like, I don't know, Northview graduates are going to see West Catholic graduates for the remainder of their life. And someone's going to have some serious bragging rights, right? Like, oh, you remember that game in, 2025? Oh, well, we won, or they won, or whatever. This is what happened. To me, that is special. I think it's unbelievable. And I think when you get two really good programs together to play, I say let's do it.
We've talked a lot about the West Catholic game, and rightly so. I mean, it's awesome.
Mhm.
It's Friday night when most of the games are Thursday, which I think puts even a bigger spotlight on it. So that's going to be awesome. I wish I could be there. I'll be on my way to Santa Fe, New Mexico, so I'll be listening on the stream. I'll be watching on YouTube, rooting for him. I love Landon too. I don't root, but it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the rest of your schedule, because stop me or correct me wrong at any point. You fought 6 teams in your conference. You have 5 league games. So now you got to find 4 non-conference games. That's never easy.
Mm-hmm.
Week 9, Forest Hills Northern. That just makes sense, right? I mean, you should play Forest Hills Northern. Having a week 9, I think that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Last year you had Wyoming week 2, Sparta week 3. You keep Sparta on there, still have Sparta in week 3, and they have their new head coach Ryan Patterson. Wyoming's off the schedule, and now you go Vicksburg at home in week 2. Tell me the dynamic of the switch there and your thoughts on bringing on Vicksburg week 2, and then Sparta week 3, and then Forest Hills Northern.
Yeah, when you have an open game, it's like it's almost like this like weird scramble. Like, okay, who else is open, right? Who else is open? Who would like to play? And I know Vicksburg was reaching out to a number of different schools to find a week 2 game. And I know Vicksburg has they have nearly everybody back from their team last year, and I think they feel like they're going to have a really good football team coming up this year. And they were willing to sign a 2-year deal, and it was like, okay, they're a school that's maybe nearly our size, or at least close. It wasn't too far away, and we didn't really have a lot of options. Once you get out of week 1 or week 9, there's not a ton of options. So you got to just take what you can get sometimes at that point. But we were super excited that a team like Vicksburg really wanted to play us. And we said, you know what, let's do it. And so immediately we were able to get some film on them and just take a look at them and say, oh, that's going to be a quality opponent. And they're a really good football team led by a really good football coach. So we're looking forward to that one. And then we'll keep Sparta again in week 3. This will be our last year with Sparta. We've actually signed with Reese Puffer for the following year. I think it's a 2-year deal or something like that. So, you want to try to get ahead of scheduling as much as you can. So you don't have like these random openings like, it's June and you don't have a week 3 filled. And then that's when you have to start traveling a little bit there.
Osh, how do you see the OK Black this year? I mean, obviously you have a lot returning, like we've talked about in this podcast. Everyone will look at Todd and what he's got at Grand Rapids Catholic Central. They were very young a year ago, so they return a lot of guys, and they're just Catholic Central. You got East Grand Rapids in the mix. And so how do you see the rest of the OK Black this year? And don't forget about Holland Christian.
Yeah, I mean, just look at, in my opinion, I mean, the quarterback play in our league is going to be unbelievable. I mean, I think Coach Doc's kid at Thornapple Kellogg is going to be the trigger man at TK, right? I mean, last year, Ottawa Hills played a freshman quarterback who I thought was unbelievably dynamic, right? Horace, and I forget his last name, but he's unbelievably dynamic kid. East Grand Rapids is going to be breaking in a new quarterback and potentially a new offense, right? That is going to ask the quarterback to run the ball a ton. Okay, you look at Catholic Central, they played a freshman at quarterback last year. I mean, he's going to be a guy that, I mean, to me in the state, he's one to watch as a sophomore, right? So, you look at and then Holland Christian, they're going to replace their quarterback, which is going to be really tough. But their JV kid was unbelievable, and he torched our JV. It was like, wow, this kid is really good. So I think the quarterback play, number one, really stands out in my mind. But then top to bottom in our league, I really think anyone can beat anyone at any given time. I mean, you look at last year, I know Thornapple Kellogg struggled a little bit, but they had Holland Christian on the ropes. Holland Christian had to have a last minute drive to win that game, right? You look at the East Grand Rapids Catholic Central game. What an unbelievable game. I mean, East jumps out to a huge lead, and then all of a sudden Catholic starts clawing their way back. We had a defensive slugfest with Catholic Central last year, and we had the baseball score of 12-3 define that game there. In our game against East Grand Rapids, they got up quick to a 2-score lead, and we were able to claw our way back. So, I mean, I just think top to bottom, I mean, I think it's a quality league. I think it's a great league. I mean, if I were to call someone as a favorite of the league, I think it's got to be Catholic Central, right? I mean, with a coach who has that kind of experience, when he's got those kind of dudes coming back, I just think he runs one of the best programs, one of the most physical programs in West Michigan. I think, you got to look at somebody like Todd Colster and Catholic Central as potentially the favorite for the league.
All right. As we get close to the end of our first ever episode here, we are new to podcasting, but I don't think it's terribly uncommon to tape shows out of order, and that's what we're doing. So in full transparency, in a coach interview we had previously done before this episode, you asked a question I loved. And so I'm going to steal it and ask it to you. Who's a player on your team that no one really knows about right now, but is going to have a breakout season, and people are going to be talking about him after a few weeks.
Yeah. I love that because and then that's what I love about high school sports. All of a sudden, you're reading in the paper, you're reading online or whatever it is. All of a sudden you're like, who is this guy? Right. He's a guy that I didn't maybe necessarily know, but he's going to be a leader. But I would, one guy on our team, and some people might know him, but I think he's going to play an unbelievable role for us this coming year. It's Colin Gessner, and he's a senior. We moved him from corner to safety in the offseason here. And he's a guy that is, number one, he's unbelievably intelligent. He's tough. He's a great tackler. His tackling stats weren't probably what they could have been from the corner position. Didn't really give up hardly any deep balls last year. We moved him to safety. I think he's a guy that I think we're going to hear his name a lot. And then we have a young corner. I mean, we wouldn't have moved a corner to safety unless we had someone behind him. And the second guy is a kid. He's a sophomore. He's going to start at corner for us. And his name is Christian Jensen. He is the second fastest kid on our team. He ran like a 51.5, 400 meters as a freshman last year. We actually thought he might be the fastest kid on our team, but then we had him run against Jalen Gant in the 100 meters. And Jalen can run. Jalen can really run. So those are really two names, in my opinion, that are going to get their name out there because I think that they're quality players and they're in a position where they can really make a name for themselves. And both those guys will be, full disclosure, they're going to be some return guys for us in the kicking game as well. So they, hopefully we can score some on special teams as well. So I think those are some guys that we can use.
Coach, I want to comment quick on Gessner. Correct me if I'm wrong, because remember we did that Holland Christian game, and they throw it all over the lot. I thought he had a monster game in that game, and he was one. I remember talking to you that week, and obviously you had just so many kids on your roster that you didn't really necessarily highlight, because there were other kids. But boy, he stood out in that game, and he had some games like that last year for you, didn't he?
He did. And that Holland Christian game, and we, our defense coordinator, Coach Nowak, put in a corner blitz package because they threw it so much, and he was able to disrupt some of the timing, some of those throws. So he was a guy who kind of came on a little bit at the end. I mean, he had a great season, but to me, he's one that, like, from that safety position and able to kind of range in the secondary right there. Hopefully he can get his name out there, having some key interceptions this year as well. But he was one of those guys, and I actually think you named him the player of the game in that game. And
yeah,
deservedly so.
He just kept making plays.
He's that type of kid.
It's great stuff. All right. Anything else on Northview from either of you?
I think I'm good. We got to save some stuff for the season, right, Coach?
I could talk forever. So, I talked about Colin Gessner. I know that his dad's excited for this game because he's a West Catholic grad, right? And so you hear those storylines right there, and I love that kind of stuff right there. But
cool.
That's it.
So we're looking forward to this podcast. Should be a lot of fun. Brett will be here when he can. He's not probably going to be here every time. It'll be mostly Osh and I, and then we'll call on Brett when we really need the big guns, which will be from time to time.
Hey, I got to sleep sometime, guys.
Right. Brett's finally got a chance to go to bed a little bit early on a Friday night. I don't know why anyone would ever want to do that, but to each their own. So that's, we're getting ready to go. Any final words from you guys here as we wrap up the first episode?
No, I think we're going to have a lot of fun having coaches on this thing, potentially some players on this thing. And if there's somebody that the fans want to see on this thing, let us know, and we'll get them on the podcast, whether that's a college coach. I'm confident we can get someone like a Tony Anise on the podcast. We can get a Sparky McEwen on the podcast. I feel really good about this thing. And I think if there's somebody that people want on there, just get in touch with us. And I think we can make that happen.
I want to end on this note because I think it's fun, and we'll be talking about these teams. Right off the cuff, you can't hem and haw on this. Give me one or two teams that people need to look out for this year that maybe had good years last year but weren't outstanding. Maybe they made the playoffs, maybe they didn't. And I'll start to give you guys a little more time. I'm going to go East Kentwood, and I'm going to go Forest Hills Northern.
Jason, you want to go?
Okay, so Northern is my team. Brett took them. I love Forest Hills Northern. I'll give you Caledonia. I think I'm higher on Caledonia than anybody else. I get Derek Pennington left, and that's tough. Whitney Bell, though, I'm a big fan of Whitney Bell, taking over there, a longtime defensive coordinator. I really like Bryce Back as a quarterback. He's just kind of been waiting his turn now, and as a junior, he gets it. And remember, those receivers, Aaron Collins and Lincoln Senti, those guys are juniors too. So while those guys have been playing on varsity and Bryce hasn't because Caledonia's had so much good quarterback play, they're all in the same class. And I just think that Caledonia, I think they're a team that nobody's thinking about, nobody's talking about, and I think they have a chance to have a really good season.
So I'm going to go with Granville. And I think that Granville is a team that they're a system offense. And I think they've got one of the best running backs in the state of Michigan. He's a senior. He's a 4-year starter. I think he's going to be really good. And they're in their second year with their defensive coordinator. So I feel like they're a team that, like, obviously they had a pretty good year last year, but I think they're a team that potentially could make a little bit of run at it. And I'm going to be totally honest, totally transparent. I think West Catholic is a very good football team this year. They've got a senior quarterback in his second year starting. I mean, they run everything under the sun offensively. They have one of the best defensive coordinators in Darren Smith. I think that is a team to be reckoned with in Division 5 this year.
All right.
Real quick.
I got to put him on the spot now.
All right, go ahead, Jay.
Is this the year? Is this the year West Catholic beats Catholic Central? Because you and I were there 2 years ago, Osh, when they lost at home, and then last year, devastating.
Right.
So is this the year they get over the hump?
Gosh, ask me in week 4.
Osh, I'm going to go back to our Zeeland West, and, we'll pay tribute to John Shillitona's retirement now, but you covered that playoff game with me. Obviously, John, and the Wing T. With what you said about Granville, do you see something? I saw it a little bit last year with the Rockford games, where when you're going toe-to-toe with those teams, you got to be able to do something else. You got to be able to mix it up a little bit. And I thought John Shillito said to me one time, it was real interesting, and Jay, you might remember this, that, everyone was kind of getting wise to the Wing T because they'd face it so many times, whether it was Unity or whatever. So then what do you have to do? You have to change things up a little bit and keep throwing the curveballs. So he had a passing game, tight ends, all that stuff that you saw, and he had a capable quarterback, and they worked on it, I think, more to do that. Is Coach Stiegel going to do that with Granville? Because I saw signs, and he has big tight ends last year that he threw to, and I think he's going to need to do that to get that season you're talking about. They're capable. I'm just wondering if he's kind of following what John was doing.
I think so, and I think that maybe I know Tank Terry with the ball in space is a scary thing, right? A lot of times he's in that phone booth and he's banging it, bouncing it out. I look for them to get him the ball in space and potentially the throw game or some other ways to kind of maybe move him out and get him the ball in space, because I just think that kid is unbelievable. First of all, he's an unbelievable human being. Second of all, I mean, his legs, his knees just keep churning. Yeah, and I think you're right there. I don't know if you can just live in the T and make it happen in today's era, right? But I mean, just like Shillito did, just has minor little tinkers. I think you'll see that out of Coach Stiegel this year for sure.
Jay, real quick, one of my favorite things with having Coach there for that game, not that Buck doesn't pick up on that too, but Coach would be like, it's coming. And they would you'd see him set it up, and then you don't need many. I mean, 3-4 completions, but if 3 of them go for touchdowns, Osh, game over, right?
Game over. And they have like the best completion percentage of any quarterbacks in West Michigan all the time. Right?
And sometimes Wing T quarterbacks end up playing quarterback at Fair State. It can happen.
That's true.
All right. Episode 1. It was fun, boys. All right. So we're going to be releasing more episodes here in the next couple of weeks leading up to the season. And then we'll be on Friday nights. Well, we'll release episodes Saturday morning sometime.
I was going to say, just call it Saturday morning.
Saturday mornings with reaction to games.
Gentlemen, right, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I'm like a kid in the candy store, man. I love it.
It was a blast. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, guys.